So this is Sean Fraser from IWI, and just like to welcome everyone for taking the time out of their day to attend our Customer Portal for Sage 300 webinar. We'll be putting everybody on mute before we get started. So I just want to make sure that everybody can see our screen and hear us okay. I believe that's possible, but if you could just type yes into the chat box, that would be great. And also, we'll be leaving some time at the end of this for some questions. And you can put those in the chat box as you're going along as well, and we'll monitor those and answer those at the end. Okay, perfect. Somebody said we could see us. So before I pass it off to Peter, just a little bit about North49. They're a Sage development partner, and they've been publishing products for Sage 300 for over 30 years. A lot of the products they developed has been put into the core Sage 300 core release from 2014 on. And now North49 focuses on the e-commerce suite of products, Web Intelligence, for example, which is deeply integrated into the web store for Sage 300, and the Customer Portal, which we're going to focus on today. So joining us is Peter Graychek, who's the VP of Sales for North49, and Etienne Grabler, who is the President and Chief Product Architect. So Peter's just going to do a brief introduction, and then he's going to pass it off to Etienne for the live presentation. So it's all yours, Peter.
Thank you, Sean, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. So as Sean said, today's presentation, we're going to focus on our Customer Portal. And just a little bit of background. The Customer Portal has always been available as a component of our full integrated web store for Sage 300 called Web Intelligence. So it's always served that part of the application. But because we use different communication methods, so for the web store, we actually replicate data in a component we call data port, and it takes care of a whole bunch of stuff, including a replication of data and passing of orders back into Sage on a scheduled basis. But the Customer Portal uses another component we call Connect, and it's actually a live read and feed of data to and from Sage 300. So because of that, we were able to separate it and make it its own application and offer it to folks who maybe didn't want a full-on web store, but they still wanted the ability for their customers to self-serve, to look at their accounts, to pay invoices, all that kind of thing. And that's really becoming an expectation now, and it has been growing that way for some years. And that's really primarily because of the folks out there like, Amazon. We've come to expect a certain level of service for the businesses that we deal with in our personal lives, and now that's spilling over into our business lives. And there's really no reason why it shouldn't, because the capability is there for us to get this kind of interactivity and customer service in the hands of our customers, and frankly, they want it. And the beauty of this is you're going to be delivering to your customers something that they expect and that they want. And it's also going to reduce your administrative overhead, because now your customers are doing things for themselves that before they used to rely on your customer service staff to do for them. So there's benefits on both sides here, and you're delivering a higher level of customer service. There was a quote here from Philippe Seneville, who is the Director of Business Innovation at BDC, which is Business Development Canada. And it's over this whole, when the pandemic started and how businesses had to kind of shift and adapt to this new way of doing things. And we started to see a big influx of people saying, I need to get online, I need to get online quickly. Of course, our web store always had that capability, but quickly didn't usually enter the picture. It's a 2 or 3 month process. The Customer Portal, however, we can have that up and running in a matter of a couple of hours, integrated to your Sage 300 and serving up your customer information for them to self-serve. And so what Philippe was basically saying is that once customers become accustomed to this kind of service, this way of doing business, they're not going to want to go back to the way it was before, because they're going to discover just how convenient it is for them to do it this way. And so as businesses, it's incumbent on us now to provide that level of service to our customers. And if we don't, our competitors are going to do it, and we're going to be left behind. So it's paramount now that we actually start to look at ways to bring this self-service capability to our customers. Our offering, which is the North49 Customer Portal, has a few different components to it, and it can be something as simple as a click to pay, which is really just a link that is embedded on the invoice document or within the email that you send to your customer if you're sending them out electronically, and you click on that link and it takes them to a page like this, and Etienne's going to show you this live, where they can pay that invoice, and that's all they can do, period. They just pay that invoice. It goes out to your payment processor's gateway, does all the necessary things, returns the payment, assuming it's successful, and appends it into an AR receipt batch into Sage 300. You don't have to do anything. It just happens automatically or automagically, however you want to say that. It's a beautiful thing. But then you can actually go beyond that. That's simple. That can be standalone, get that click to pay only, or you can go with the full customer portal solution, which provides a lot more capabilities for your customers to serve themselves. And this goes from paying multiple invoices at one time. It allows them to look at their entire history with you, as long as you've got sitting inside of Sage 300. Because we're reading this information live, we can access any information for as far back as you've got, and for any document that you want to expose to them, and that's completely within your control. And they also have the ability to manage and store the credit card tokens on the system, so that they don't have to enter that card information every time. They simply have to select from a list of stored cards that they can then pay that document with. So it even streamlines that whole process for them fairly significantly. And rest assured, we're not storing the direct card information. We are only storing that card token, which is a secured way that folks like us and you are allowed to store that card information. So there is no PCI compliance issues here whatsoever. We've also, because of this whole pandemic thing, introduced this quick order entry form, which is really just a quick and easy way for your customers to enter an order, and it goes straight into Sage 300 order entry and returns back to them a Sage order number. So I don't want to sort of overcharacterize this as a web store. I mean, we will continue to evolve it, adding images and extended descriptions and that kind of thing, but it doesn't have that full web store experience. It's really just an order entry form that folks can enter an order into Sage 300 automatically for you to go and fulfill that. And again, Etienne's going to show you this stuff live so you can see what it really looks like. That's the extent of my setup there. I'm going to pass it over to Etienne here just in 1 second, but I just wanted to make one more point here. Etienne's going to show you a bunch of stuff about the front end, what your customers will see, and also there's a merchant administration side that allows you to control what goes on inside the portal. Now, I want to make the point, though, that this is typically set and forget. Once you get this set up the way you want it, you don't have to go back into that administration portal to do anything. It's there, it just runs, it does what it needs to do, and you don't really have to do anything with it. So just wanted to make that point, and then I'll turn it over to Etienne. If Subu, you can make Etienne the presenter, and we can get on with that part.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. As Peter said, the portal is largely a set and forget application. Once it's up and running, it goes. The portal does not in itself store any data, so everything that it presents the user is read real time out of the accounting system. And that means a number of things. First of all, it means it's real-time data. The customer is looking at the same data you would be looking at within Sage 300. Secondly, it is absolutely secure. The data is never on our servers, cannot be hacked, cannot be stolen. It is an absolutely secure system. With that said, then, Peter started off by saying Quick Pay is an application or part of the application that can be rolled out as a standalone module, and so that probably is an optimum place to start. Click to Pay is your ability to embed a link on a document which the customer can simply go ahead and click. When they click that, we'll take them off to a page. They can make a payment. That payment is entered into your Sage 300. That document can be anything. Could be the document you produce out of Sage 300 as an invoice, and you can embed a link on that. It could be a PDF. You could embed a link in your email. What I've done is I've just mocked up one in a Word document. It really is very simple. You're going to pass it your portal URL and then give it the parameters of the customer and the invoice. And so if we hover over this link here, you'll see that's what's happening here. I'm going to be using SAM Ltd, and we're passing it customer 1200, good old Ronald Black, and we're going to pay invoice number 61. And the customer can come in here, click on that link, and we'll take them right to the payment portal. when the portal loads, it's going to do a verification of that document. So it's going to go off, read the document, make sure the document is still payable, it does match customer 1200, etc. And it will then bring up the information about that document. You can choose to expose this page without passing it the parameters. So you can choose to send somebody here and just say, type in your customer number, type in the invoice number you want to pay, and go ahead and pay it. The system will verify it and make sure that this document A belongs to this customer and B is still outstanding to be paid. Okay. Depending on your payment portal and what's been set up, you can offer them different payment options, so pay by credit card or pay by ACH or EFT, electronic check processing. And all the customer has to do at this point is go ahead and click. There is no documentation to be synchronized. You don't have to load everything onto the cloud where the customer goes ahead and pays it. And you certainly don't have to download a batch to be created at the end of the day. I know there are other documentation available or other click-to-pay opportunities available at the moment. And Sage has just released a similar one. But all of those solutions requires you, the owner, the merchant, to upload documents on a periodic basis, or even as you create the document to send it off to a cloud storage somewhere, and then a procedure to draw a batch back into the system. With North49's Click to Pay, that just is not necessary. So let's go ahead and pay this document. I'm going to use a dummy card here. Did I type in sufficient number? I'm not sure, but it'll tell us. Nope, I did not. So let's just fix that. There you go, that should do it. Click to close that. Oh, no. My keyboard, I'm so sorry, my keyboard is giving me an issue here now. That should do it. And we'll go ahead and pay that document. The user is immediately presented with a receipt. A copy of the receipt will also be emailed out to them. They can go ahead at this point, print a copy of the receipt, PDF it, do whatever they want to do with this document, and they've got a copy of the document. If we flip over, and I will open up the Sage 300, which backs up the system that we're looking at, and show you that entry has been made directly into the Sage 300 in the background. So we've just paid, remember, we've just paid invoice number 61 here. Let's go ahead and have a look at the receipt batch. And here is the receipt batch. That entry number 61 has now been entered as a receipt into the system. That also means that if the user should go ahead and click this link again, we are going to verify that this invoice is still open or not. And if it's not open, we're going to simply give them a message that this invoice is no longer available for payment. So the entry is made directly in. And even though it's still lying in a batch, we are going to check if there are any outstanding payments or pending payments sitting in the batch, and we're going to warn the user about that. That's Click to Pay in a nutshell. The customer clicks the link, they make a payment, the payment gets entered into a receipt, but that's it. There's no other action required from your part to make that happen. Let's have a look at the greater portal. I will go through the merchant options and how you're able to set this up, but literally everything here is under your control. This will be your company logo at the top there, graphic. You can change that graphic quite easily. We've allocated a fairly large space on the header here for you to do that. So you could have your company logo and some verbiage on the side here on that image that you want to show. It is very easy to change this, so you could have one for going into the holiday season or a Halloween one, or however you want to do that. This will be your welcome message. You can set that in the system. This is what you want the user to know about that. So these are controllable components on the screen, and you can deal with them the way in which you see fit. The registration happens in one of two ways. Option one is you can tell the system to simply email you. So a customer comes in, he wants to register, he will send you an email. That will pop up a form, and he fills that in, sends you an email. you can come in and create the user and give them access. Option number 2 is the system will self-register. And that kind of looks like this. The user will select a username. He'll put in his customer number. We will ask him to verify against a piece of information. That could be zip code, the last invoice number, the last payment amount that he made. That would be your option there, name, address, etc. We have implemented strong password control, so at least 6 characters, at least 1 digit, etc. These, of course, are encrypted. Ask him to confirm that email. Once he does this, you then have 2 options. You can then enter him as a user into the system in a mode where he's waiting approval, or if he's answered this verification question correctly, you can give him immediate access into the system. So literally allow him in. You do not have to pay any attention to new users being registered. There is an option in the system that allows you to notify you as the merchant about any new users being registered, but also to notify the customer that a new user is registered on their account. These does allow, of course, multiple users on a single account. So customer number 1200, Ronald Black here, will be notified that user, these guys have entered on, have created a user on the account, so they're aware of it. The email being used here would be the email in the customer record in accounts receivable. So you will still control who gets that email, and they will be notified. Right, let's move on and log in here. So I'm going to select a user, and I'm going to go ahead and log into the portal. The first thing the user will see potentially is this note that's going to pop up. And what this is a comment on the accounts receivable record in Sage 300 with the type web. So if you create a comment with the type web, this comment is going to pop up here. Let's go across and just have a look at that again. So we'll just go and access that Sage 300. And now I can leave this open because we're done with it. So customers, let's have a look at Ronald Black, who we signed in here. And account Ronald Black. My keyboard is really not working this morning. Come on. Comments. And here is that comment, that note to viewer. This pop-up message stored in the comment field. This is the comment that popped up for the user as he logged in. When he says OK here, which I'm not going to do, what will happen in the background is we will change the comment from web to web acknowledged, telling you that the customer has seen your comment and has clicked the OK button. So this is just really a very quick communication between you and a specific customer. And that could be everything from please contact us, your credit card's expiring, to happy birthday, Ronald. Whatever you want to send them up on the screen, there's going to pop up for them. We also do have what we call a broadcast message. A broadcast message will go across all customers in the system, and that could be a notification about special COVID hours or whatever you want to broadcast to all the customers as they log in. Likewise, as they acknowledge that message, we're going to set a flag that they've seen the broadcast and they'll stop seeing it. And you, of course, can create as many broadcasts and reset those flags as often as you want to. Okay. That was communication with the customer. Let's go have a look at the standard functions. Each one of these are individually selectable, as in exposing this to your customers. You may not use order entry, for example, and so that flag's just simply not going to be there, or that option's not going to be there. And I'll show you that when we get into the merchant side of it. Account activity is going to give the customer a brief look at his account. This is your current balance. There are that number of open on invoices. Your terms code is this. The last statement date, last invoice, etc. 3 years worth of sales history. Again, remember, we're reading this out of your system direct, so this will be available from day one. It's not that you have to build up any sort of history here. This is just literally a quick account overview, account setup. View transactions will do pretty much what we think it's going to do. It's going to allow the customer to have a look at his transactions. How many entries per page do I want to see? Show all or open only. Open only means only those transactions with a current balance. By the way, remember our good old invoice number 61, which we paid earlier, is showing paid here. Bear in mind that your customer does not know that Sage 300 is a batch processing system, and neither should they. So we are going to react here as if the customer is unaware of what's going on in the background. They know they paid this document, so we're going to show this document as being paid here for them. And of course, we can narrow down to certain document types. You have the option to set which of these document types you want the customer to have access to. And so, for example, you could limit that down to invoices and receipts, and that's all the customer is then going to see. They won't have access to any of the other documents. On this page, of course, the customer can log in, or can drill down at least, and they can get a copy of this document. They can go ahead and print a copy of this document. It is possible for us to set this up as a replica of the document that you produce within Sage 300. That would be an additional charge item, but we can set this up to look the same as your internal documents look. And the customer then now can help themselves with documents. When they look, for example, at a receipt, we are going to show them how that receipt was applied inside of Sage. So we will show them the detail of that. Here is your receipt, the dates, etc., amounts, the applied amounts, and what did we apply that against. So we're going to show them that this document was applied against this particular invoice. So that very simply is view accounts. It gives the customer the option to self-serve in terms of, I didn't receive an invoice, get me a copy, or look back in history. And we will show them as much history there as you want to show them. So we could go back for as much as you want them to go back, literally to the beginning of time. Whatever you have within Sage will be available for them to have a look at. Again, remember, we are drilling into your Sage. We don't have any of that documentation. So if it's available inside of your Sage, we're going to show it to them. Paying an account online, very simply, let's start at managing credit cards. If you have this option and if you turn this option on, we will show them the credit cards of which we've stored the token. Peter said that we store only the token, which is correct. So there's no PCI compliance issues. If somebody should ask you, is your portal PCI compliant? The answer legally would be not applicable. We never touch the card. There's no way the customer can enter the card here. They have to enter it on the gateway when they make a payment. So we never touch that. We stay entirely separate from the process of handling the card, and for that reason, there are no PCI compliance issues. You do have the option, if you are using an integrated solution, and currently with us, that would be Paya or a Paytelligence system, that we will store the cards within Sage 300 as we've done here. So these cards also appear on the customer record, and the customer can use them there. So you can see these cards on the customer record within Sage. These tokens are not actually stored in this particular case on the portal. If you're using a card processor which is not integrated into Sage, then we will store this on the portal. The customer has access and use of it, but you as a merchant do not. Let's go to Pay Account. Pay Account is simply going to list all the open invoices for us, and we go ahead and we pay them. Remember, invoice number 61 is missing here. We've already paid it. Let's go ahead and pay the rest of these guys. And when we do make this payment, then we're going to pop up the options available, based on the cards that they may or may not have stored. So this may or may not appear at the top here. And then also based on the payment types which your gateway is going to offer them. So do you have the ability to pay by check or ACH? And here the customer can say, I want to add a new card and I want to save this card if you have that option. And this card is going to be added to the list of cards. It's done at this point because, as I said, we do not touch the card. And so when we send him off to make that payment, the gateway is going to return back to us the card UI or the card ID. Or token, and we will then store that token for the user had they selected to save it. If they use an existing card, there's no need for us to then send them off to the gateway as we did with invoice number 61, if you recall in the beginning. So if they go ahead here and say make the payment, the next reaction the system is going to give them is literally the invoice. And we are working on a live gateway here. We are using sample cards, but we are live. So that is literally the speed at which the system is going to react here. It's going to come back to them immediately and give them the answer here. Again, at this point, notifications have been sent to the user. They will get an email copy of that. They can, of course, print a copy of that. Optionally, you as the merchant have been notified of this. And there's some really cool functionality here in terms of the notification. I'll just kind of detour just for a second. And I'm going to pull this over just a little bit to the side. Our notifications happen via email primarily. So there will be email a notification sent out. For example, here is the notification sent to Ronald Black. I received this email here. To Ronald Black, Sample Company Inc. Thank you for using Sample Company. Your payment this date, yada, yada. You paid invoice number 62 through 66. And here's your notification of that. The merchant will also receive a notification. Here's the merchant notification. So, you know, hello, Sample Company Inc. Ronald Black made a payment. Here's that payment. We also integrate to both Slack, which is a messaging system, and Microsoft Teams. So if you want to receive immediate notifications, Slack will do that very well. So let me call up Slack here. Within Slack, there are channels, and I've created a channel here for Portal Accounts Receivable, Portal Customer Service, Portal Order Entry, Portal Technical Support. And you will see that when we look at this, there were instant notifications made here. So I instantly knew that invoice number 61 was paid a little earlier, and then invoice number 62 through 66. Just to kind of wrap up this notification, let me make another payment here. Go back, and I will select another document for payment. Let's pay invoice number 15 for a full $2.17. As I hit the make payment here, watch the notification pop up on my Slack internally. And if, of course, if you know Slack, you will understand that oh, transaction was not successful. Sorry. Let me pick an invoice which I can actually pay. I need a larger number. There you go. And to make that payment. And as the payment was paid, you could see this invoice popping up here. Slack is a messaging system which works very well. There is a free version available. And so I encourage everybody just to install it. That'll give you a really quick notification of what's happening. Within any one Slack channel, you do add the users that needs to get that notification. And so those notifications are going to come through to all the relevant people, and they'll know immediately that payment has been made. Move that out of the way. And of course, in the background here, I have received notification of this via email. So notifications are going out, letting you know what's going on internally at all times. Finally, let's have a a brief look at order entry. Order entry allows your customers to go ahead and place orders online, and the orders are written back into your system in real time. Everything on the portal has been designed and created to work on every type of device. So it'll work well on a computer. It will also work well on a cell phone. So your client can be wherever they want to be. They can make a payment and place an order online from their cell phone. In order to minimize the screen clutter, we did remove certain options here, or not remove, but at least hide them. We are now implementing a function where we can choose whether you enter the screen with these options opened up and the user can close them, or close them, the user can open them. Ship to locations come from accounts receivable ship to, and the user can, of course, enter a new ship to location here if they want to. PO number here, let's enter a PO. What's the date today? The 15th, so demo 10/15. Select a delivery date. I want this delivered on the 31st, and then please ship to Sean ASAP. And that is the header information that we need to enter. Searching for items, we will search through the SKU number, the description in Sage, the 4 additional item information lines in Sage, and if you choose to do that, we will also search by customer item number within Sage. So if you are using that functionality where you are recording your customers' item numbers for your products internally, we will look that up. That means that the customer can literally fill in their SKU number here, and we'll find that item for them. We are implementing a system which we will call enhanced order entry, where we will allow you to add pictures to a product, and we will then show a picture as the user selects an item, and they can go ahead and choose that functionality. We believe that, in fact, will be available tomorrow. It is that close, so we will do a product update this evening and expose that functionality to you. So what will happen here is I'll type this in. Again, remember, we do not have any information on our system. So as the user presses the enter key here, we're going to search for it, and we'll come up with everything that matches that criteria. We do honor every pricing model inside of Sage, and when you set up order entry, you can choose to have a standard price list, which you just want to give everyone, or to apply the pricing applicable to a specific customer. If you apply pricings to of a specific customer, then we will also limit the products which a customer can see to the products available on the prices for that customer. So you have the ability to control the range of products which a particular customer will see. From this point on, we make this entirely keyboard driven. So let me kind of move my mouse out there, and I'll just say, I want a halogen desk lamp. The system is going to fetch the pricing for that. I want 5 of that, and then I want a pencil, so pen, enter, and I want a pencil, and I want 10 pencils, etc. And so the user goes on and builds the order that they want to build. There's a question in the setup of what unit of measures we want to allow a person, but if the prices have been set up as a unit of measure, then we will of course, ask them for the unit of measure that they want to purchase in. So I want to use each and go ahead and process my document. So that's order entry. If we then go ahead and post this order, that order is going to be written again real time into the system as we go ahead and post it. The order number that was allocated to this is order number 75. So if we pop right over here and we close all of this down and go to order entry, I'm going to see order number 75 having been entered into order entry. And here's order number 75. Order number 75, of course, has those 3 lines which we entered. It's got my desk lamp, my pencil, my fluorescent desk lamp over here in the quantities that I've entered. So this document is being processed directly into the system. On the other end, the customer now has the ability to go ahead and view and print that document for themselves immediately. So here it is, a document as it's going to be processed for them. And of course, if I go back to viewing my orders now, order number 75 is going to be the top order that's there. We do have the ability to take a quick look at an order here under view orders, and of course from here likewise we can draw down, print a copy, etc. In terms of the status of the order, these could be calculated by us, or you do have an option to allocate an optional field to this if you choose to do that. That will give you the ability to control the status in a lot more detail. For example, if you have a manufacturing process, an order could come in, it will be awaiting approval, you can then approve the order, it then goes to in manufacturing, etc., etc. And you can give expected delivery dates here of that product and so forth. So you can control the status, or we can simply calculate the status based on the status of the document inside of Sage. Whether you place a document on hold or not is an option, so you can process all documents going into order entry on hold, or you do not need to do that. Awaiting shipments being taken off hold, awaiting approval is the status of a quote, and I'll speak to that in just a second. Standing orders, etc. When we look at orders here, we can show all or open only, same thing. Does it have a balance or does not? The transaction types that I want to have a look at here, And then do I want to view this by order or by item? By item is going to give me a list of open items. And of course, I've got the order here. I can drill into that order and have a look at it. Just a quick look here at some other functionality. If there's been any invoices issued on a document, I have the ability to have a look at those invoices. So here is that invoice that was issued here, and I can drill down into that invoice from here as well. So I have the ability to look and see which invoices have been issued, if there were multiples, pardon me. And I don't think I have any, but I will be able to have a look at the list of invoices that were issued for a particular document. Also, when I look at a document, pardon me, again, remember that your client is looking at this and they don't understand that as you issue invoices or shipments from an order entry order, that the quantities get diminished. So we do a kind of a reverse calculation here, in that quantity ordered would be quantity shipped plus quantity on back order. So we actually show the client sensible information. If you look at order entry, in fact, the quantity here would be 0 because we've shipped it. 0 meaning that's still the quantity on order. And so we've kind of reverse engineered the process that back order quantity plus quantity shipped is going to give me the quantity ordered. This makes a lot more sense to the customer than showing them a 0 at that point. Just the last note here, when we look at orders, you have the ability to let your client post quotes, which you can turn on and off. You would have noticed that when I looked at order entry, there was no option, and that's because it's been turned off on my system. But you can let the customer post a quote, and what you're really doing is doing an RFQ for them. So they're going to contact you and say, give me a price on these. Or if you want stricter control of what's coming in from the web, you can let them post a quote. You can then implement the system internally, which allows you to review that quote, correct it, and then let them know that the quote's been viewed. And that's kind of what happened here. We've got 2 quotes here, quote number 4 and 5. Quote number 5 is awaiting approval, meaning that we are waiting for you to review this quote. Quote number 4 has been approved, and once a quote gets approved, the customer then has the option to go turn this quote into an order. So the customer can now come in, review the quote, and if they agree with that, they can go ahead and confirm that, and that will turn the quote from a quote into an active order for the customer, and you can then go ahead and process that. Finally, just to wrap up this piece, there's of course a contact us note here. This will again do all the necessaries. It will send off an email to you. It will notify Slack and Microsoft Teams, whatever you've turned on. It will send a notification or a confirmation of the request to the customer, and then he waits for your reply on that. With that, we've kind of wrapped up what the portal looks like. I will try and very briefly give you a look at the back end of this and what you can control. And again, let me boringly remind you that once it is set up, it really is a set and forget application. And so even as we kind of drill into the details of how you control this, once you've set this up, it really is not necessary. When you log in as an administrator from your own portal front end, the system is going to then give you access to the back end of this. And the first thing you're going to get is the system will go off and collect statistical data. So it's just going to give you an idea of the health and welfare of your system. So the number of receipts processed, we processed 3 receipts today. Remember, invoice number 61. Then that whole list of invoices 2 to 66 or whatever it was, and then that last one here. We also had a failed entry or not approved entry, if you recall, so we'll have a look at all of that. It's going to give you a bit of a 6-month graph here of the health of the system. It will do that by the number or by the amount of documents or the amounts that were processed. You can see how many people have logged into the system, how many users representing how many customers, and there's this thing called unprocessed receipts. And I'll get to that in just a second when we deal with receipts specifically, but perhaps deal with it now. What does happen is we do write the receipts into your Sage 300 system real time. So this is primarily designed for integrations into Intact, for example, where they do not have a real-time writing of receipts. So there is an import function involved. And so what will happen is, as the customers process during the day, we'll accumulate them, and they will then come and create an import batch into Sage Intact, and we'll bring those documents in. Under a Sage 300 environment, what may happen is there could be a break in communication between the point that the customer goes off to the gateway and then comes back, and for some reason we could not process that. One of two things could happen. We could lose communication with your Sage 300. That is highly unlikely. Remember, there is a 1 second delay when he's still got access to his account and he then says, I want to make a payment, and the result comes back from the gateway. So that is a highly unlikely scenario, but it could happen. You could, start a backup or whatever might happen in that very split second of time. More likely, though, is it does happen that the gateways do not always respond to a request. So a customer says, I want to pay. They go off to the gateway. They come back to us, and the gateway never lets us know what happened with that entry. That could happen here. What then most likely will happen is when the gateway responds, we will receive those responses and we will process them. So again, highly unlikely that you would not know about them sometime in the future. Customers, let's have a look at users very quickly. This allows me to then control my users. Remember, we said we can set that up so a user needs approval from us. We can come in here and approve the record. We can delete a user, so we can make a user inactive and then take them off the system. We can edit their account at this point, and we can, of course, go ahead and add new users. We've built in a fairly sophisticated filter. So if I want to see which users have been registered for customer 1200, which is Ronald Black, I can just simply go ahead and do that. Of course, Ronald Black is our demo customer, so there's a heap of guys registered for him here. Let's see if we can find someone with slightly less users attached. There we go. So customer number 1500 has one user attached to them. We can see when that user was registered, so the registration date of this customer. We can also see when they last logged in. So this customer last logged in on September the 22nd. It allows us to get access here. We can upload a CSV file if we want to manually control our users, or if we have a different system that we're currently using, we can export a file and we can add a user manually. If we add a user manually, we're going to show you here the user type user, meaning somebody logging into the portal. We also have a merchant, so somebody having access to the back end here. And we have a salesperson. The salesperson type user allows a person or this user access to multiple accounts, so they can go in. Now, this would be you're sending a salesperson out on the road, and he wants to sit with the customer and review the account or review prior sales, place an order, perhaps pay account, whatever he wants to do out there on the road. Give me the salesperson code in accounts, in Sage 300 in accounts receivable. If I do not check this box, then this person is going to have access only to the accounts on which he is one of the 5 designated salespeople. If I check that, it makes him an open salesperson. He can have access to all accounts inside the system. With this, of course, you can have overlaying concentric circles of access. So you can create a salesperson and he will have access to 10 accounts. You can then create a sales manager and he will have access to the 10 accounts of each of the salespeople underneath him, and so on and so on. And then you have your sales director, and he'll have access to all the systems underneath him. We spoke very briefly about broadcast messages earlier. Here is the broadcast message. Dear customer, we should take this opportunity to thank you. Whatever you want to do here, if you reset this broadcast, then every person logging in is going to get that message. You can have it set up for a future date, so you can prepare a message that will kick in on October the 31st, whatever the case might be. Gives you access to a broadcast message here. Receipts. Does what we think it will do. So receipts is going to give us all payments made in the system. What we can see here is a brief description of what this payment was. Mr. Ron Black using credit card 5454. The auth code was 400, etc. It was approved. It was processed into the system. This flag will be unset if it wasn't processed in, and you then have the option to come in and either manually deal with it, or you can just ask the system to reprocess it into your Sage, and it's going to try and enter that entry for you again. If we drill down into this, remember we made 3 payments today, so this is invoice number 80 that was paid. Starting off, we did invoice number 61 that was paid, so here is my invoice number 61. We also paid invoices number 62345, so we can have a look at that. Here is a declined entry. Remember, our $2.17 was declined for us, so we can see that that entry was declined. This is really going to give you complete control over what was and was not processed. We log these in the greatest detail, so we know what's going on with a particular payment, and this is going to give you access to that. The search function is quite good, so if a customer comes in and says, you know, I made an entry, I can't see it, you can type in the customer number. We're going to see what that customer did. You could even drill down to a particular document. So I paid invoice number IN00018, and we can filter down and say, show me everything with invoice number 18 paid, and here it is. That is the document that was paid. So looking at receipts is going to give you access to controlling what's going on. If you should have that query, you get a call, I made a payment, I cannot see it, what happened to it, you can come in here and have a look at it. We do have a status called unapplied, so let's just clear this filter. Oh, sorry, incomplete. Incomplete is those entries where the customer said, I want to make a payment, then went off to the gateway, and they, you know, while they had the gateway in front of them, they decided to visit Facebook instead, whatever the case might be. So you can come in here and say, yes, I saw you try to pay invoice number 59. The entry is showing incomplete. So for some reason, that entry, which you never completed on the gateway, please go ahead and do that again. If they absolutely insist that the payment was made, you can log into your gateway virtual terminal, have a look at it there, and you can then go ahead and manually process it if for some reason it was processed on the gateway and we just never knew about that. Finally, let's have a quick look at your control over the system, and I will fly through here at massive speed and then leave it open for questions at the end. This allows you control over your portal. How do I want to have customers register or self-register, approve or not approve? Here are the verifications we can ask them. This is the email account, in accounts receivable, the last payment amount, invoice number, or invoice date. So you can ask whatever question you believe is going to be secure enough. And then here are those messages, welcome to sample company, log in to discover how you can blah, blah, blah. My logo, very easy. I said we can change this quite easy. Let's change this to a Sage 300 cloud application. And this would be the logo that you, the logo that you load. It will appear on the top of the screen. So it gives you very easy access here to control what your system is going to look like. Features and functions. We spoke about being able to turn on and off certain features and functions, so we can go ahead and do that over here. Where would you like to store your credit cards if you have an integrated system within Sage or on the portal? How would you like to order status in view orders displayed? Remember, we said you can base them on the shipment and invoicing status, or you can manually enter them into an optional field. Here are the documents you want to allow the system to display. Here is the URL. Very typically, it will be a subdomain of yours, so it will be, you know, customers at North49.com or whatever, the portal at North49.com, and we will then point at that URL. Payment processing is where you're going to set up your credit card processing system. We are ever expanding this list. We will connect to every major processing company in North America, and so we are busy expanding what this will look like. And here are the criteria. The setup option, you want to restrict payment by customer, so we give you the option to exclude a particular customer from being able to make payments online if for some other reason they are on an invoicing or terms code which gives them so little profit that you really cannot afford to pay 3% on that. We do have maximum payment amount that allows you to say to the system, anything over $1,000, I cannot accept a credit card. It needs to be ACH. Do you want to allow partial payment, yes or no? There is an option here for you to fill in some detail. In certain states in the US, they need to notify the customer of some sort of payment notification about paying by credit cards and fees, etc., etc. So you can set this up. This will appear on the payment page of the portal as the customer is making a payment. Finally, notification, or second from last notifications. 4 types of notifications: to the technical contact. That will be anything going wrong. Please check. We cannot communicate with you via Slack or MS Teams. The integrations here are really simple to set up. You can simply click that button. It'll take you off. It'll ask you which channel you want to integrate into. It'll give you a link. You copy that link and insert it here, and you're done. So it really is an extremely simple method of setting this up. Do I want to receive emails, Slack, or Microsoft Teams? Accounts receivable, receive new users and payments. Order entry will know of any orders created and contact us, would be that contact form. Here's the feedback. So when I fill that in, the user is going to get an immediate feedback here of what we're going to do about their contact. And here are the customer notifications. We differentiate between the user and the customer. The user will always get notified. They'll get order entry confirmations, etc., etc. For example, here is an order entry confirmation that was sent out to the user saying these are the things he ordered, etc. But do you also want to notify the customer? So the customer email account in accounts receivable can be notified of new users registered or orders created. Finally, let's have a quick look at order entry setup here. These are just the questions. What's your default location? What's your default price list? Do you want to allow only selling unit measure? Do you want to post orders on order entry on hold? Do you want to allow price overrides? Yes, no, or only the salespeople? Do you want to post orders as an order, as a quote, or allow both? Allow creating orders from quotes, yes, no. That function allows the user to kind of turn a quote into an order. Include customer item number on the search, yes, no. Show item details. This is that option that is going to be implemented to show the user a picture as they enter the order. So apparently we have activated that. I said we should have it done by tomorrow. Apparently it's already done. So if we turn this on, I'm going to then see a picture pop up when I process the order. And that's it. Finally, as a user here, you have access to your account in North49. So this is your account as a merchant with us. They'll give you the renewal date of your portal. There's a contact us if you want to chat to us. Likewise, you can drill down into your documents and have a look at your documents with us. So see what you paid for, etc. And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up my demo, and I'll hand it back to the presenter and be ready to ask any questions that you may have on the portal. Thanks very much.
Hi, Etienne. This is Sean. That was a great presentation, straight to the point. We do have some questions. I'll start with the first one. Can you generate custom order forms for long-standing repeat customers to use, i.e. they only purchase 6 items every 2 weeks? They don't need to search the entire product database each time they want to place an order.
Good question. There is 2 parts to that answer. If a customer is only going to place an order for 6 items, all you need to do is create a price list for them with those 6 items, and that's what they'll be able to see. I know that's not an optimal suggestion, because they may want to purchase something outside of that group. The second part to that answer is we are in version 2, rolling out what we call catalog purchasing. And so that will allow the customer to see more of a catalog view as they purchase, or rather than having to type in the items, they'll see a list of items. And then the third part to that answer is we are within the portal functionality, which is currently available to Webtelligence or to the full e-commerce system, is the option to reorder from previous documents. And we will roll that into this portal as well. So you place an order for 6 items. What you need to do next time is call up that document and just simply say, I want to reorder this, and this item. And it will place them into the order for you. And of course, based on that, you can then go and add a new item or whatever you want to do on that as well. But we will allow you to call up an old document and process that. If the merchant then wants to, they can create a standing order. So the customer can just go in, call up his standing order, and just place an order based on that standing order. So that functionality is coming. It's probably a ways away unless somebody comes up and steps forward and says, I really need that. Right now, our development efforts are focused on integrating into Sage Intacct and Sage 100. So release 2, if nobody specifically asked for that, probably a few months away. But as I said, if somebody steps up and say, I really need that functionality, we will reconsider the development schedule and maybe move that a little closer in.
Okay, another question. What are the system requirements for the customer portal?
Absolutely none, actually. Literally the only thing that sits on your side would be a web service component that runs. So you do not need to run, IIS or internet services. It is a service component running. It is self-installed, but we do typically help with that install. Other than that, literally nothing. The speed of the portal is going to depend on the speed of your access into your system. But it is minimal. So our overhead on your side, very little. One thing we do use is we are going to consume a Sage license as we communicate with your Sage system. So you do need an available Sage license. If typically you kind of have one hanging around, that's fine. If you are using every license in your system, you would need to contact the dealer and get you a new or an additional Sage license.
Okay, another question is, how long does it take for the customer's portal to get set up?
Couple of hours.
Okay. And do you have a specific payment processor to take payments for the customer portal?
Any major processor in North America. If we do not currently have that processor, we will add it for you. Pardon me. If it is a major processor, and that may delay it a little bit, it'll probably take us about a week to communicate or to complete the integration into a processor. Our recommendation, of course, would be to look at one of the integrated solutions that currently exist, very simply because it allows you to continue processing within Sage itself. But we will integrate into every major processor in North America.
Okay. That answered a question that just came through. Another question on that as well. And so another question here is that if we have our own WW site, can we just link the store to our existing site and it redirects?
Yes, we cannot integrate into your current store. So what you would do is you would put a button on your store says customer login. You would subdomain that, so it will be customers.mydomain.com. When the customer hits that button, we take them off to that. So it will be on your domain. The customer will feel comfortable that they haven't been kind of shoved off to some third-party application somewhere. We cannot make it available within a frame, an iframe, for example, on a store. That does compromise our security. But certainly, you link it on your current system and put a button there, and the customer can go ahead and log in.
Yeah, and just to clarify, they said our own WordPress WW site, not own store. I might have read that wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't, the answer is the same whether you have a WordPress, which is just, a static site with, pretty pictures and about us and so on. The concept will remain the same. So we cannot kind of embed ourselves into your system because, again, that puts security at risk for us. But you certainly can put a button on there, and very typically, there'll just be a customer login button. The customer hits that, and we take them out. And if we've, if you put up your logo and image and welcoming message and so on, we have not had somebody report back that a customer thinks that they're being pushed off, to some phishing site or something externally. But so it really doesn't matter. Put a button on there and redirect them to your portal. The URL will be your URL if you choose to do that, and so it will seem normal.
Okay, that looks like all the questions. So once again, Etienne and Peter, we appreciate your time and presenting this to our Sage 300 customers and prospects. Is there, I believe that's it. So what we'll do to everybody is we will send out the recording link in case you need to see this again and any associated materials, and we will follow up and answer any more specific questions. So I'd like to thank everybody once again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone, for logging in.
Thanks, everyone.